35. Newcomers. Ben.
He watches the newcomers devour their food like starved dogs. They smell like death. They don't look much better. Ben is trying to sort out which he dislikes more, having an alpha zombie and 2 regular zombs locked up in Juniper for observation, or having strangers in Creekside. He's still undecided. He personally made the men strip down and let him check them for bites. They had their fair share of bruises and scrapes and cuts, but he'd found no bites.
"We don't hang on to the bitten," Leo told Ben when he inspected the man. "We're not stupid."
Ben didn't ask him to elaborate on those statements. He tried not to look too long at the sunken rib cage and clear signs of hunger that clung to the members of the group. Besides a few small backpacks with bottles of water and some candy bars, they appeared to have nothing other than the clothes on their backs. Even so, Ben keeps his guard up. It could all be a ruse. He prefers to err on the side of paranoia. They had few weapons, mostly knives. A few had short spears of rebar. No firearms of any kind. They surrendered everything without argument. The 7 newcomers now sat in a tight cluster on the floor, eating spaghetti that Gary made for breakfast. Ben wants to blame them for Lila and Jesus' deaths. It would be easy. But he's been in enough battles to know shit happens. It's not their fault. There are 2 kids in the group. They scarf their food down like ravenous animals, not even bothering to use their silverware. Ben hasn't seen kids like this since he served in Africa. The sight grinds away at his intrinsic hostility to strangers. Kate tries to keep an impassive expression, but she's no good at it. Or maybe it's just because Ben watches her so often, he's become good at reading her. The plight of these people picks at her heartstrings. She's going to let them stay. He sees it in her eyes. These half-starved, half-dead strangers will fill the part of her that's been empty since Lila and Jesus died. They could not have picked a better place to come calling.
"We have some spare rooms you can use," Kate tells them when they finish eating. "You can freshen up and get some rest. We have running water. It's cloudy today, so it probably won't be warm, but you can at least wash up. We'll get everyone new clothes."
"Will you let us stay?"
asks a woman with gray blonde hair. Her name is Stacy.
"We can talk about that tomorrow,"
Kate replies.
"If you stay, you have to pull your weight."
"We can work."
Leo sets down his empty bowl.
"We can help. We can help with whatever you need. I worked on a farm before all hell broke loose."
"What kind of farm?" Carter asks.
"Marijuana farm?"
Leo shifts, unease suddenly in his eyes.
"It was a legal one for medicinal cannabis. I managed the grow beds. I saw your indoor garden downstairs. I can help with that. Expand it."
They could use an indoor gardening expert, especially after the loss of the library. They could use anyone who knows anything about growing things.
"We'll talk later," Kate says. "First, we'll take you to a spare dorm suite. You can freshen up and rest."
Ben takes a rearguard position with Caleb as the newcomers file into the hall after Kate. The two of them exchange glances. For once, Ben feels no animosity toward the other man. From the look on his face, Caleb is as wary of the newcomers as Ben is. Good. That means he'll be vigilant. They need vigilance with so many strangers in their home. Kate doesn't take them to any of the empty suites on the second floor. Instead, she leads them up to the third floor. Ben approves of this. All the food and weapons are stored on the second floor. He knows Kate wants to give these people the benefit of the doubt, but at least she's being sensible. A small group of survivors enters the empty suite with a look of awe and appreciation. The plain kitchen and living room with its band posters must feel like a safe haven after the hell they've endured.
"Did you clear out this place yourselves?"
Leo asks.
"Yes,"
Kate says.
"This is our home. It's called Creekside."
"Thank you for your hospitality,"
he replies, clearly not missing the way Kate leaned on the words, "our home." Jenna and Carter bring in 2 black garbage bags stuffed with clothes we've gathered from the dorm rooms.
"Hope there's something in here for everyone,"
Carter says.
"If there's a size missing, we can take a look in some of the other rooms."
"It's perfect. Thank you."
Leo wads a dirty hat in his hands.
"Look, I'll be honest. There's nothing left for us outside these walls. If you guys throw us out, my people are as good as dead. I know we're on probation. We don't want to waste any time trying to prove ourselves. Put us to work now. We know you guys are working on fortifications. Let us help."
Kate shakes her head.
"You guys are exhausted. Take a day to sleep and restore yourselves. We can talk tonight."
"We don't need to wait. Let us help with the fortifications and prove ourselves. Believe me, every last one of us knows there are worse things than being tired."
Leo raises his eyes to Kate's. Ben sees a man close to breaking from the pains of the world. He knows what that feels like. Something in him eases as he watches Leo. The man's people gather behind him in a tight knot, every last one of them looking to Kate with hope in their eyes. Slowly, Kate nods.
"Okay. If you insist."
They troop outside. Even the little kids come, stoically refusing to leave the side of the woman, Margie, with her silver hair in a bun. Ben follows at the rear where he can keep an eye on everyone. Clouds cover the sun. It smells like more rain is coming. A dozen zombies have gathered outside the north side of the wall. No matter how many they kill, there are always more that replace them.
"We can take care of those for you."
Leo gestures to the Milling Undead.
"Thank you."
Kate smiles at Leo.
"That would be very helpful. What do you need to get it done?"
Leo shrugs, eyes flinty.
"Just about anything will do the trick."
He walks over to the pile of rebar from the ruins of College Creek. Leo extracts a piece and hefts it in his hand like a spear. The others join him. Even the 2 kids, all of them grabbing weapons. Rocks, chunks of concrete, more rebar. Judging by the way they look at the zombies on the other side of the cars, Ben can tell they've done their fair share of killing. As Leo leads his people out of the compound, Carter pulls out the screwdriver and hammer he always wears at his belt. Jenna and Susan are right behind him, also drawing weapons. Kate, of course, has to join them. Ben edges up behind her, staying vigilant.
What do you think of them?
She whispers to him. He recalls the broken look he'd seen on Leo's face. I think they're good people. He takes half a dozen steps with her, watching the back of Leo's head. But you shouldn't take my word for it. I'm not the best judge of character. He'd misjudged Johnson, after all. One slip out here, and people die. Even though she'd been drunk, he wonders if she remembers the things he'd told her about College Creek, about the kids he'd failed to keep alive.
I don't want this to be one of those times when I make a mistake.
Kate draws in a long breath, her gaze taking in the dorm buildings that surround them.
But I want to help them.
This is one of the things Ben admires most about Kate. She gives a shit. She gives a shit about perfect strangers she hears calling for help from a charter boat in Humboldt Bay. She cares about strangers who show up hunted and half-starved on her doorstep. Shit. There isn't anyone she doesn't care about. Trust your instincts, he says. The rest of us will back you up.
Thanks, Ben.
She gives him a small smile before jogging away to join Carter, Jenna, and Susan. They slip through the front gate after Leo and his people. Ben follows, keeping watch as he promised. 20 feet in front of them are Leo and his group. The 2 little kids are armed with big rocks. Something about the sight of their small hands wrapped around weapons makes his stomach clench. He'd seen child soldiers in Somalia and Uganda. It was no less disturbing in Africa than it is now. Still, in the zombie apocalypse, the defenseless person is the dead person. Arming these kids wasn't the wrong thing to do. The group of zombies outside the compound has grown to 8. With Leo's people, we number 11. Maybe the kids won't have to fight. Leo wields a piece of rebar in one hand, a rock in the other. He sprints forward, breaking away from the group. He's fast and silent. He reaches the foremost of the zombies as they begin to rotate in our direction. He drops it with a swift strike of the rebar. As a second zombie closes in, he leaps toward it and smashes it with the rock. The rest of his people rush forward, each of them silent and vicious in their attack. The little kids dart after them. Ben watches in fascination as the kids bring their rocks down on the skulls of any zombie that hits the ground, making sure the dead stay dead. Kate sprints into the battle, leading Ben and the others. It takes their combined force no less than 2 minutes to bring down the 8 undead. Spattered with blood and surrounded by bodies, Leo's people survey one another, checking for wounds and bites. The little kids compare blood splatter. Ben sees the moment when the Creekside crew adds 7 new members to the ranks. It's when Kate looks at the kids. She takes in their little hands and the blood flecked all up and down their arms. It's all over after that. Ben doesn't blame her for a second. It's over for him, too.
Your people are skilled zombie hunters,
Kate says. Leo looks like he might collapse from exhaustion, but he straightens his spine. We've had enough practice for a lifetime.
Kate nods. She and Leo exchange a long, silent look. Leo radiates earnestness. Kate is helpless to turn away from it, though she pretends to weigh it.
There are a few things all new members of our group have to agree to, she says.
Name your terms.
She draws in a breath and launches into the same speech she gave Ben when he joined her.
Cars are no longer a safe mode of transport. Even bikes are questionable. Anything that draws the attention of zombies is dangerous.
Leo and his people nod. None of them speak, so Kate continues.
My people rely on endurance for survival. Anyone who joins our community agrees to 6 days a week of endurance training.
What's endurance training?
Leo asks.
Running,
Carter explains.
We train at the track.
Every member of our group can run for 4 hours at a time,
Kate says.
It's an essential survival tactic.
That training has saved my ass, Ben pipes in. When the Alpha Swarm hit Arcata, Kate and I had to run like rabbits to get away.
You guys run?
Another man in Leo's group, a pale-haired fellow, looks intrigued.
Was a PE teacher, and I ran track in high school.
Me too,
Jenna says.
Which events?
400 and 800-meter sprints.
The man replies.
I did hurdles.
Jenna smiles.
Kate's workouts aren't anything like regular track workouts, but they're fun. I can't promise it will be easy,
Kate says.
But I will get you strong. We have an ex-military member who teaches us how to shoot. On top of training, there's the other essential survival chores that have to happen. We work hard and train hard. Everyone pulls their weight.
I'm in.
The younger man steps forward.
My name is Christian.
Me too,
says Stacy. She looks closer to Kate's age, with ash-blonde hair.
I don't like running, but I don't like the idea of being dead either. Or undead. I'll work hard and train hard.
We're all in.
Leo extends a hand in an offering. Kate doesn't take his outstretched hand.
You haven't heard it all yet.
There's more?
Leo's expression wavers.
We have 3 zombies locked up for observation. We're studying the alpha zombies and learning what we can about them.
The silence to this declaration is absolute.
We're a package deal,
Kate says, steadily.
We want to help you, but you have to accept the parameters of our community.
Leo swallows, looking from his people and back to Kate.
I take it the zombies are secure?
They're on the 2nd floor of an abandoned building. The windows of the room they're in have been boarded up. So is the door. All observations happen through a hole cut into the ceiling on the 3rd floor.
Leo swallows again.
Okay. We accept your rules.
This time, when he extends his hand, Kate shakes it with a kind smile.
Thank you,
Leo says.
I'm not exaggerating when I say you've just saved our lives. You won't regret it.
"36. Check-in. Kate. And that, I tell Alvarez, is how we ended up doubling the number of Creekside. We are now 16 people. I don't mention the alarming rate we're going through food. I prefer to focus on the positive things. Leo and his nephew Todd both worked in the— I paused to clear my throat. Cannabis industry. They know a lot about farming. They're in the process of expanding our indoor gardens.
I sure could use their expertise, Alvarez replies. We're having shitty luck with our garden. I think it's too cold here. Or maybe the soil is bad. Hell if I know. We're having a hard time growing food.
At least you have seagulls to fall back on. Alvarez groans.
Don't remind me, Mama Bear. I know I shouldn't complain, but I'm sick of eating those filthy things. Can you believe 2 guys in my camp are trying to domesticate some? I keep telling them we need to focus on chickens, if we can ever find any.
We have our first kids, I tell Alvarez. Their names are Christy and Evan. They're 8 and 10. You should see them kill zombies. They scurry in after the adults and bash any downed zombies over the head with rocks to make sure they're really dead. I grimace into the ham. Ben calls them our child soldiers.
I don't know what to say to that.
I didn't know what to think at first either. But now I think it's a good thing. They can defend themselves. You never know when that might come in handy. They train every day with the adults, too. Their workouts aren't as intense, but I make sure they get the exercise they need to make them stronger. The lady who looks after them, Margie, is a retired kindergarten teacher. Let me tell you, those kids get an education with her.
Oh? What do you mean by that?
Math is taught in the supply rooms, and usually involves inventorying newly scavenged supplies. Reading involves survival stories. Margie went through every dorm room in Creekside to round up suitable books. Basically, she's combining survival skills with general education. She was something of a prepper before all this happened.
A prepper? Doesn't sound like that worked out too well for her if she ended up on your doorstep.
It started out okay, but she lived in a condo. She had a 2-bedroom place stocked full of supplies. She banded with a big group of people. Her supplies were used up pretty quick. The good news is that she knows how to can food and preserve meats. She's been talking nonstop about finding some chickens.
If you guys manage to find any that aren't dead, save a few for us, will you?
Alvarez asks. I'll FedEx you some eggs. You can hatch them and start your own chicken coop. He chuckles.
That's a deal, Mama Bear. How are the newcomers taking to your running regime?
I think back to the past 2 weeks with Leo's people. I don't know the details of what they endured before they made it to Creekside, but whatever it was left them desperate enough that no one complained when I took them to the track the first time. They looked at me like I was nuts when I laid out their workouts, but no one complained. They're coming along, I say. I'm taking it slow to help them build up their strength.
You sound good, Mama Bear. Best I've heard you sound since that Alpha attack.
I consider this. Things have lightened up since Leo's group joined us. They're good people. We all have baggage, but we're working together for a common goal. How are your people doing? Any more sign of those bandits? The silence on the other end of the ham is heavy.
None.
And the Alphas?
It's a good thing you gave me a heads up. It saved us the first time we ran into one.
Have you seen a lot of them?
Only 2. There are no large groups of zombs out here, except maybe in Bragg's. But that's a good 90 miles from here. Speaking of alphas, how's the science experiment going? Have you guys learned anything useful about alphas yet?
Not yet. It's certainly not for lack of effort. Gary and Johnny have thrown themselves into the job with complete dedication. They spend most nights together after dinner going over alpha recordings taken during the day and trying to find patterns in them.
I'm sure there will be a breakthrough eventually, Alvarez says. Yo, Mama Bear!
Johnny, who sits on the other side of the table, taps his watch.
Time is up! Like 30 minutes ago.
He grins at me, though he makes it a point to flip open his notebook and uncap his pen. I chuckle. Hey, foot soldier, I gotta go. Wandering writer is chomping at the bit. Who's the girl he's talking to? Johnny makes a face at me.
Bella. She's right here tapping her watch at me.
Funny. Johnny is doing the same thing to me.
Is she really tapping her watch?
Johnny asks. I roll my eyes and ignore the question. Check back in 3 days from now, foot soldier?
3 days, Mama Bear.
"37. Infrasound. Kate. I climb to the 3rd floor of Fern, where Johnny and Gary have set up their observation room. I like to check in on the boys once a day. We've had the Alpha for a little over 2 weeks now. While we haven't had any breakthroughs, they've done a remarkable job at breaking down and recording individual sounds made by the Alpha. Our people have cobbled together enough 2x4s and pieces of plywood that we now have a ramp system for Gary in both Creekside and Juniper. As far as I know, Johnny has only tipped over the wheelchair once. I would have excused Gary from this assignment altogether if he hadn't been so excited by it. Between cooking for all of us and observing the Alpha, Gary has managed to be as busy as the rest of us. Gary and Johnny's voices drift down the stairwell to me. It's clear they're having a spirited debate about something.
I'm telling you, there's something else going on that we can't replicate with our human vocal cords,
Johnny is saying.
That doesn't make sense,
Gary argues.
They have the same vocal cords that we have. We should be able to make any sound they make. They're not the same. They're undead, remember? I know, man, but biologically their vocal cords are the same. Maybe they changed. I mean, the rest of their bodies changed. Now they're blind, mindless cannibals. Have you ever heard of infrasound?
I enter the room. Infra what? I ask. Both young men turn their attention to me.
Hey, Kate,
they say in unison. The room looks like a cheap flea market stand. Notebooks, pens, books, VHS tape recorders, and cassette players are all over the floor and furniture. I don't know how they get from one side to the other without tripping on something. Without a steady source of electricity, we've had to fall back on more primitive recording methods. Luckily, the town of Arcata, with its population of outliers and anti-establishment folks, has a fair amount of pre-internet tech. A string of homes just on the other side of the freeway produced no less than 2 handheld recorders, 5 tape players, and 2 shoeboxes worth of cassette tapes.
Gary and I were just talking about infrasound,
Johnny says.
Those are sounds below the human range of hearing. Elephants make them. They use it to communicate over long-range distances. Maybe the Alphas are doing something like that.
You have the weirdest shit cataloged in your brain.
Gary looks torn between annoyance and admiration.
It's a job of a writer to be interested in weird shit.
I approach the hole we've cut into the floor of this room. We've covered the 2-foot square opening with a section of chain-link fence to make sure no one falls through on accident. In the room below, the Alpha paces back and forth. It grunts and clicks. The 2 regular zombies we've captured follow the Alpha. Back and forth they go across the room. The oozing wounds on their bodies have seeped onto the carpet, leaving a reddish-brown smear to mark their trail. The smell is akin to ripened roadkill on steroids. Tell me why you guys are talking about infrasound, I say.
Watch this.
Johnny leans over the hole and makes a complex string of clicks and keens with his mouth. It sounds so like the language of the Alpha Zom that I shiver. But despite the resemblance of sound, the zombies below don't react.
Same thing happens when I do it. Watch.
Gary repeats the same complex string of sound. Again, nothing happens.
Now watch this.
Johnny picks up one of the tape recorders. It looks like a boombox from the 90s. We had to scavenge in 5 houses to find enough batteries to power it, but Johnny insisted on having it due to its size. He positions the boombox next to the hole, turns up the volume, and hits play. The exact same series of clicks and keens roll out of the big black speakers. The reactions below are instantaneous. The 2 regular zombies rush to the farthest corner of the room. When they hit the walls, they scratch at the drywall. They grunt and moan, bumping against the wall as though trying to walk through to the other side. The Alpha, on the other hand, does no such thing. The old woman Alpha advances on the opening above, lips peeled back in a snarl. It hisses and grunts, the sounds coming out of its mouth in rapid fire.
We think she's defending her property,
Gary says.
She thinks another Alpha is trying to take her pack out from under her.
Notice how neither Gary nor I could replicate this same reaction when we mimicked the sounds,
Johnny says.
Man, I'm telling you that's not it,
Gary argues.
Did you know that in Mandarin, the same word has multiple meanings depending on voice inflection? We must be missing something. We're not making the sounds the right way.
No, man,
Johnny shakes his head.
We're replicating exactly what we hear. There's something else at play. I'm telling you, it could be infrasound. We need some sort of machine to help us detect undetectable sounds.
He taps the end of his pen against his temple, grimacing.
Think we can find something like that in one of the labs on campus?
Gary snorts.
Even if we could, none of us would know how to use it.
You guys are missing the most important discovery. I frown at them quizzically. Did either of you realize this series of sounds drove the regular zombies away? I point to the 2 creatures that continue to scratch and dig at the far wall of their prison. Do you realize what we might be able to do with this? They look at me as if I've just hit them both over the head with a frying pan.
Whoa!
Johnny goggles at me.
Dude, Kate, I'm sorry for being an idiot.
We missed the forest through the trees. We're fucking idiots, man.
Gary elbows Johnny in the ribs.
You're the idiot.
Johnny shoots back with an easy smile.
You're the one who keeps going on and on about Mandarin inflections.
I'm telling you.
Gary, shut up for a second. My mind snaps into overdrive as an idea rushes in. We need to test this out. We need a megaphone to see if we can use the recording to repel zombies from Creekside. The idea makes my insides tingle. This could be the very thing we need to protect our home from alphas.
Megaphones. Yeah, good idea.
Johnny nods.
We should get the ones at the track.
Gary makes a face.
Dude, those are like 50 feet up in the air. How do you propose getting them down?
"38. Security system. Kate.
I think you're violating every OSHA law ever written.
Ben comes to stand next to me. He shades his eyes as he looks up. Reed currently hangs from a metal beam in the covered section of the university bleachers, held in place by a rope harness crafted by Todd and Caleb. In his hands are a screwdriver and wire clipper. He works to remove the megaphone mounted to the top of a ceiling support, while Todd and Caleb hold him up by the rope. "What's OSHA?" I ask.
Occupational Safety Health Administration. A bureaucracy dedicated to keeping people from dying or getting maimed on the job. I think the entire administration would be apoplectic if they had to keep track of you.
I frown in surprise. Did you just make another joke? He continues to shade his eyes and watch Reed's operation.
Maybe.
That's 2 jokes in the 6 months I've known you.
Yep.
Keep that up, and you might be funny 4 times in an entire year.
Yep.
I can't help it. A laugh bubbles up. Ben gives me his eye-crinkle smile. My stomach flutters. Other than our mission to retrieve the Alpha Zom, we haven't spent much time together. I haven't forgotten our shared moment the morning of my hangover, or that moment in his bedroom when I thought I might end up in the bottom bunk with him.
How many of those things do you plan to retrieve today? Ben asks. The kid might really break his head open, you know.
This comment is followed by shouting between Reed, Caleb, and Todd.
Dudes,
Reed calls down.
Hold still, will you?
We are holding still,
Todd shoots back.
You keep swinging around.
There's wind up here. Not my fault.
Just hurry up and get the damned megaphone, Caleb shouts.
Your ass is heavy.
We'll start with 1 megaphone, I say to Ben. No reason to risk Reed's head if my idea doesn't work. Several hours later, everyone except Gary is gathered on the rooftop of Creekside. Johnny holds the megaphone in one hand. With a pair of trimmed headphone wires and a soldering gun, he connected the megaphone to the boombox with the Alpha recording.
Good thing I grabbed those electrical wiring books before Mama Bear blew up the library,
Johnny says.
I hope you guys grabbed an anarchist's cookbook,
Todd says.
We might need one of those someday.
Shh. I wave a hand at the guys to shut them up. Everyone pay attention. On the ground below, Carter and Jenna stand on the western side of the compound. They each hold a metal pot and spoon.
This feels counterintuitive,
Susan says.
Since when do we call zombies to us?
It's going to be okay, babe,
Gary calls up from the hallway below. He might not be able to get up the ladder, but he still wants to be close to the action.
Don't worry, this is going to work.
I'm just saying,
Susan mutters. She isn't wrong. We've gone to great lengths to secure our home and keep zombies out of our living space. Banging on metal pots to draw some toward us is counterintuitive. Not to mention dangerous if my plan doesn't work. I peer over the edge of the building at Carter and Jenna and wave my arms over my head. At my signal, the 2 of them beat on the pots with their spoons. Everyone on the rooftop cringes at the noise. It doesn't take long for the zombies to arrive. A dozen make their way toward Creekside, shuffling along with their arms outstretched. I let Jenna and Carter pound away for another 60 seconds. Then I wave my arms again, signaling them to stop. We wait for the zombies to bump up against our barrier. Then I turn to Johnny. You're on, I tell him. Johnny positions himself at the corner of the rooftop, aims the megaphone in the direction of the zoms, and hits play on the boombox. The recorded sequence of clicks and keens bounds through the quiet. A shiver runs across my skin at the unearthly sound. The reaction of the zoms below is instantaneous. With a collective moan, they fall back from our perimeter. On the ground below, Carter flashes me a thumbs up.
Is it working?
Gary calls. Is it driving them away? Somebody tell me what's happening."
"It's working," Susan cries. "The Zoms are retreating."
"Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny says grandly, "what we have here is a bona fide zombie apocalypse security system. Hold your applause. Just leave a tip in the jar and we'll call it good."
This sets off a string of eye rolls and groans.
"It was Kate's idea,"
Margie, the former kindergarten teacher, says.
"She's the one who should get the tip."
"You're forgetting one thing," Ash says.
"The radio runs on batteries.
We're going to need to scavenge a ton of them to keep this thing operational."
"Nah, I just need to figure out how to wire the radio to the solar panels."
Satisfied with the zombie retreat, Johnny sets down the megaphone.
"Guess this means I have to let these idiots dangle me from a rope again."
Reed jerks a thumb at Todd and Caleb. In response, the other two young men deliver simultaneous middle fingers. Reed doubles over, laughing. "What we need," I say, breaking up the revelry, "is an extensive library of alpha commands. Gary and Johnny, you've done good work. Now you just need to do more." My mind spins with the possibilities. If I have anything to say about this, we're going to have a full dictionary of Alpha Zom words at our disposal. "39. Recipes." Kate.
"I can't wait to get these pieces moved downstairs. I want to get the seeds planted within the week."
I glance up from where I lie on the floor, twirling a tiny Allen wrench between my fingers as I disassemble a bed leg. On the opposite side of the bed, Leo and his nephew Todd dismantle the other legs. Leo has drawn up plans to convert several floors of the Laurel dorm building into an indoor garden. Right now, we are dismantling dorm room furniture to convert into growing beds. Marge wants to go on a scavenging mission back into downtown Arcata to hit up the hardware store for canning supplies, I say.
"We don't have to rush. We won't have any food to can for 8 to 12 weeks,
Leo replies.
"Marge just likes canning,"
Todd adds.
"She wants to start teaching the kids how to do it."
Not for the first time, I find myself grateful for the new additions to Creekside. You know, the indoor garden was only a vague idea before you guys stepped up to spearhead the project.
"It's the least we could do. You took me and my people in when we had nothing. After losing so many back at the condo complex, you gave us a fresh start."
Leo glances at me from beneath the mattress.
"Was there a Mr. Gate? Before the apocalypse, I mean."
I sigh. Yes, but he died a few years before the apocalypse.
"I had a fiancé. A stepson."
Leo doesn't look at me as he finishes his side of the bed.
"I tried to get to them. When I heard reports of what was going on, I rushed home from work. By the time I got there, you know the story. It's not unique."
Doesn't mean it hurts any less. I recall the day I arrived home to find my husband dead.
"I just mean I'm not special or unique in my pain. We've all lost people. I lost both my parents," Todd puts in. "My sister was off at college in Washington. If she is alive, I'll never see her again."
I think of my College Creek kids, all of them stranded in Arcata with their families lost and scattered. We have to make new families. It's the way of things.
"That's what Christian says. It's a good way to look at things now,"
Todd says.
"Hey, guys," Eric strolls in. "Kate, I need you to come look at something."
A distant part of my brain wonders what he's doing here. Eric is on scavenging duty with Caleb and Ash. The 3 of them are supposed to be looking for seeds we can plant in the garden. You need me right now? It's pretty obvious I'm in the middle of something.
Yeah. Now.
Eric shoves his hands into his pockets. The young man hasn't asked anything of me since Lila died. Miraculously, he doesn't even seem to harbor any ill will toward me. He does, unfortunately, smoke more pot than ever before.
I found something,
he tells me. I glance over at Leo and Todd with an apologetic shrug. Leo waves me off.
The furniture will be waiting for you when you get back.
Then, oddly, he winks at Eric. I'm not sure what that's all about. Eric is already slinking out of the room, hands in his pockets. I sigh and pad after him. Time is valuable, especially as the days are getting shorter as we head into fall. I follow Eric out of Fern Dorm and back in the direction of Creekside. We pass Margie and the 2 kids as they return from a trip to the nearby creek to gather water. With them are Reed and Stacy. The adults all lug giant 5-gallon buckets. The kids carry gallon jugs, 1 in each hand. They strain under the weight, but neither of them complains.
You're going to make them do fractions?
Reed asks.
With buckets of water?
Let me guess,
Margie says dryly.
You weren't much of a math fan when you were in school.
I'm not much of a math fan out of school.
There's no better way to teach fractions than with water in various container sizes,
Margie says.
It's the best way to get kids to visualize the concept. Granted, I used to use measuring cups and water from the tap, but buckets and jugs and creek water will function the same.
Eric and I leave them behind and head into Creekside. Once upstairs, Eric leads me to the dorm room he used to share with Lila. I pause just inside the door. Lila's pink and yellow flowered blanket has been straightened, the decorator pillows in place. Eric makes it a point to make the bed every day. It was something Lila did before she died. Seeing the neat blanket tightens my chest.
Look what I found.
Eric lays a hand on a pile of spiral-bound notebooks spread across the bed. What are those? I move to the foot of the bed, taking in the many monoblocks of color.
They're Lila's notebooks. All of them. She never threw anything away. Here, sit down.
He drags a desk chair up for me and closes the door. I don't want to sit. I want to get back to dismantling beds with Todd and Leo. I suppress an impatient sigh. If Eric needs my attention, I'll give it to him. I sit.
These are all her recipes for her cannabis salves and tinctures.
He pushes one of the notebooks into my hand.
Take a look.
I flip it open. Lila's neat handwriting marches across page after page. Emotion blooms in my chest. I remember seeing Lila with these, bent over the kitchen counter as she meticulously measured, mixed, pounded, and stirred her ingredients. There are notes with all her recipes. Many of them are crossed out and rewritten with slightly different measurements of the various ingredients. I miss her. I miss her scared eyes and her acerbic tongue. Lila. I close the notebook and press it to my chest. When I look at Eric, I see the same emotion in his eyes. They're misty with sadness, though a tender smile pulls at the corners of his mouth.
All her work and experiments of the past few years.
Eric picks up another notebook, flipping through it.
We can recreate her medications and salves.
Before the world ended, Lila had a dream of starting her own medicinal cannabis company. Everyone liked to poke fun at her, mostly when she, Reed, and Eric quarreled over the dwindling supply of buds. Her muscle salve worked. I rub absently at the ankle I rolled on my journey to Arcata, thinking about how well her salve had helped me heal.
Johnny and Carter have both been using it. Now we can make more.
Eyes brightening, Eric pulls open a drawer and pulls out a Ziploc with 2 buds.
Look at this. It's shitty bud full of seeds.
From my time spent with the kids, I've gathered that shitty weed has seeds. The more expensive premium buds don't have seeds.
Now that we have seeds, Eric says, do you think Leo and Todd could get them to grow?
My eyes narrow. You want to use our indoor garden to grow marijuana?
Pharmacies are going to dry up. We've looted our fair share, but the supply is going to run out. It's in our best interest to develop other medicinals.
If his face wasn't so earnest, I'd think this was a ploy to restock his pot supply. Eric spends more time stoned than not, but at the moment there's no hint of fuzz in his eyes. He's stone sober, and he means every word he says. I have to think on it, I say. Let me go over Leo's plan for the garden and see if there's a corner we can set aside for a plant or 2. Your job is to go through these books and make a compilation of all the final recipes. Make a combined list of all the ingredients. There's no use to put in a pot plant to make medicinals if we don't have any of the other components.
Okay.
Eric takes the notebook back from me and returns it to the stack, spending more time than necessary straightening the already neat pile.
You're really going to consider it?
Yeah. I put an arm around his shoulders and squeeze. We owe it to Lila, don't you think? He nods, sniffing once.
Yeah.
As I head to the door, Eric says,
Wait, Kate. I want to talk to you about something else.
What is it, Eric?
I was, thinking about the cemetery.
He shifts, not quite meeting my eye. We don't have a cemetery.
The rubble where we buried Lila and Jesus,
he amends.
We need to mark it. Set it apart from everything else. Maybe find some fencing to put around it.
It's not a bad idea. The problem is that it would take half our people and at least 2 days to find fencing and transport it to the site. It's not the best use of our resources. I don't say any of this to Eric, though.
Just think about it. Please?
Eric asks. Okay, I'll think about it.
Wait. Kate?
Once again, he stops me when I try to leave. Yes, Eric?
Thanks for being here. For all of us, I mean. You hold us together.
I give his shoulder a last squeeze. Before he can delay me any longer, I push out the door and into the hall. And right into a sitting room decorated with streamers and a big homemade banner with the words, "Happy Birthday, Kate," written in big bubble letters. Every member of Creekside is there, big smiles filling the room. Surprise! "40. Surprise. Kate."
Surprise!
The word washes over me. I stare, dumbfounded.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Carter, arm draped around Jenna's shoulder, grins at me.
My mama is officially old.
Reed emerges from the crowd and crushes me in a bruising hug, lifting my feet off the ground. He twirls me in a half circle and plops me next to the kitchen table. In the center of it is a large chocolate cake. A paper plaque sits on top, the words "Over the Hill" written in black marker. Beneath the words is the number 40. Guess who made the cake? Jenna jerks a thumb at Reed.
Hey.
Reed puts his hands on his hips.
I had to make the cake when Mama Bear was sleeping. I dare any of your asses to make a cake on a barbecue with a headlamp for light.
I was talking about the decoration on the cake, Jenna replies.
Oh.
Reed cocks his head at the paper plaque that looks like it was drawn by a third grader.
I'm pretty much the next fucking Picasso. Y'all better save that. It'll be worth millions someday. Do you like it, Mama?
I sputter, trying to find words. How?
How did we know it was your birthday? Or how did we pull off the surprise?
Johnny asks. Both.
It is your birthday, right?
Caleb frowns.
Of course it's her birthday,
Carter says.
You didn't think I'd forget, did you, Mom?
I shake my head, still in shock over the surprise. I turn on Eric. You were a distraction. He shoves his hands into his pockets with a grin, not bothering to deny it.
How'd I do?
You've officially tipped your hand. I now know you're a grade A bullshitter. Everyone chuckles, crowding forward to hug me or clap me on the back. I catch sight of Ben at the back of the gathered crowd. He wears his general gruff expression, arms folded over his chest, but he gives me a wink when our eyes meet.
I hope I'm in good shape like you when I'm old,
Evan, the little boy, tells me.
Hell, I'm already old,
Margie says.
If Kate doesn't give me a heart attack during training, I might get in shape one day. Heart attacks are half the fun,
Johnny tells her.
Says the punk who's on a recovery cycle.
Margie grouses.
I'll be passing you in another week. Just you wait, old lady.
Gary made a special casserole, Susan tells me. He's been working on the recipe for days.
We had to break into the student store to get powdered potato cups, says Christian.
Since arriving, the former PE teacher has helped me add new strength training routines to our workouts. He's shaved off his beard, revealing the face of a man in his early 30s. Christian wasn't exaggerating when he said he ran the 400 and 800-meter sprints. Reed is still our fastest runner, but Christian chases his heels any time I make them race. Gary and Susan bring out his casserole, which turns out to be the apocalypse version of shepherd's pie. The top is covered with the powdered mashed potatoes. The bottom is a gooey mixture that bears a loose resemblance to cream of mushroom soup with caramelized onions and peas. I may have turned my nose up at it prior to the zombie apocalypse, but tonight, on my birthday, it's the best thing I ever tasted. It turns out Gary has a sense for seasoning. He's made some pretty interesting and delicious canned food casseroles on the barbecue. In comparison to Lila, he's practically a gourmet chef, though I would never disrespect Lila's memory by saying that aloud. After dinner, Reed prepares to cut the cake.
Someone get a candle or something,
he yells.
Anything flammable. Oh, and make sure there's 40 of them for our Mama Bear.
Jenna produces a potpourri candle with 3 wicks.
This is as good as it's going to get.
Peppermint scent.
Reed makes a face. Jenna shrugs, lighting the candle with a book of matches.
One more person wants to sing you happy birthday.
Johnny holds up the ham radio.
Foot soldier, are you there? Over. Wandering Rider, this is Foot soldier. Over. Where's Mama Bear? She's right here, Foot soldier, Johnny replies. Get ready to bust out the birthday melody. On 3,
Carter calls, plunking the peppermint candle in front of me.
1, 2, 3.
The entire room bursts into song. My gaze passes over each and every one of my companions. Carter, Jenna, Reed, Johnny, Eric, Ben, Caleb, Ash, Susan, Gary, Leo, Christian, Todd, Margie, Stacy, little Evan and Christy, and Alvarez, 200 miles away. Everyone here for me. My heart swells with love. I blow out the candle, sending a silent wish out into the world. Protect my people. Keep them safe. After everyone has cake, Carter taps a spoon against a glass.
All right, everyone. Time for Mom's birthday present.
Presents? I ask. On top of food and cake?
One more,
Carter says.
This one took a lot of planning. Jenna and I may have gone on a super-secret mission with Ben back to a certain brewery.
My mouth falls open. You what?
Don't worry.
Ben holds up his hands in self-defense.
I took enough grenades to take down a large village in China. They were perfectly safe.
I narrow my eyes in mock scowl. No more super-secret missions.
Don't say that until you see what we have.
The crowd parts as Carter lugs a box in his arms. Glass clinks inside. He plunks the box in front of me. It's wrapped in Hanukkah paper.
I found that.
Christy jumps up and down, beaming.
I was playing hide-and-seek with Evan and found it under a bed.
It is the most beautiful paper ever, I tell her, tearing into the gift. The lid to a cardboard box pops open as the wrapping paper falls away. Brown bottles with beer caps fill the interior. I lift one out, my body going still as I take it in. On the front of the bottle is a hand-drawn label in the shape of a half-ellipsoid. A green mountain fills the upper curve, bisected by what is clearly a trail. On the trail is the silhouette of a runner. Over the top of the mountain are the words, "Over the hill." Carter can't contain himself any longer.
Jenna designed a beer label for you.
He beams at his girlfriend.
And Carter made a special brew for you,
Jenna says.
It's a lager.
I pop the top of the bottle. The glass is cool in my hands. Not ice cold like the good old days when we had refrigerators, but cool like it's been stored in a dark closet. The first sip washes over my tongue. I close my eyes, letting the taste carry me back to a different time. To a time when Kyle and Frederico were still alive. To a time when my free time was spent training for ultramarathons and researching races to see where my next adventure would take me. To a time when running wasn't something I did for self-preservation. To a time when the world wasn't overrun with the dead. It tastes like a finish line. My voice is rough with emotion. Carter and Jenna gather me in for a hug. I squeeze the two of them, holding them close. My love for them threatens to explode out of my chest. This is by far the best birthday I've ever had. Hours later, I leave the party and make my way back to my room. I have a slight buzz from the beer. Everyone else had one bottle, but I got 3. On top of a couple of shots of moonshine that Reed and Johnny have been brewing. I feel happy from the inside out. To top everything off, I don't have watch tonight. Leo took my shift as a birthday present. I might have insomnia, but at least I'll be warm and comfortable in my own bed. Flinging open the door, I switch on the light and freeze. Gone are the Grateful Dead posters, the baskets of stinky boy laundry I never got around to moving, and the cluttered desk of a college kid. Every surface area is spotless. The window is open, letting in fresh air, And did someone spray pine air freshener? Where did someone even find pine air freshener? Even the stained bedspread is gone, replaced with a graphic quilt. It depicts the silhouette of a howling wolf with a full moon hanging overhead. But the part that really takes my breath away is the walls. Covering every square inch, the ceiling, the walls, and even the bulletin board on the back of the desk are pictures of nature. Trees, rivers, waterfalls, deserts, hillsides, wildflowers, oceans. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm back on the trail. Like I'm surrounded by the beauty and serenity I've missed so much. A piece of my old life gifted to me. Another birthday gift. And I know who it's from. "41. Rooftop. Ben.
When Ben hears steps on the ladder, he doesn't turn around. He secretly hopes it's Kate, though he promised himself not to hold his breath. She's busy with her party. It's too much to hope she'd have time to find him up here. Besides, it's not like he left a card.
Hey.
Her voice washes over him. He closes his eyes, savoring it. He turns and finds her standing there, outlined by the starlight.
Did you do that?
She asks.
The pictures? My room?
You told me you missed the trails. She tilts her head at him. He can tell by the way she stands that she's drunk. Maybe not shit-faced like she'd been at the wake, but there's a looseness to her limbs and posture that gives it away.
When did I tell you that?
He wishes he could see her expression, but it's dark, and she's too far away. The night of the wake, you said you missed the trails. He sucks in a breath, trying to work up the words he really wants to say. He blurts them out before he has time to second-guess himself. If there was a way to give you a real trail, I would. Honestly, I thought about it, but I figured I might get myself killed trying to secure a section of the woods for you. Now he sounds like an idiot. I'm still useful around this place for a few things, so I decided not to risk it. She takes 6 steps in his direction, coming close enough that he can now see her face.
It's one of the nicest things anyone has ever done for me. Thank you, Ben.
You deserve it. The 5 paces separating them evaporates. Before he can fully comprehend the disappearance, she stands on her tiptoes and kisses him. He's barely let himself dream of this moment. Kate is so far out of his league it's not even funny. Not to mention that he can be an asshole. But here she is, standing under the starlight, kissing him. And even though he knows it's not good enough for her, he seizes the moment. He pulls her close and kisses her back. She feels as good in his arms as he'd imagined. His blood heats as she leans into him, running her hands up his back. The words come out all by themselves. You taste like a bar. The perfect moment fizzles. Kate steps out of the circle of his arms.
Really?
She wrinkles her nose at him.
You lead with all that stuff about wanting to build me a trail, then close with, "You taste like a bar"?
Give him a gun to point at some bad guys, and Ben knows just what to do. Give him a grenade to lob, and he's a pretty good shot. Hell, throw some undead at him, and he's more than up to the task of dispatching them. Give him a woman he wants. It's like to scrambling his brain with a fork. Give him a woman he's crazy about. It's like scrambling his brain with 2 forks. You did have a few drinks, didn't you? He asks.
A few, yeah. So did everyone else. You taste like Reed's cake, by the way.
5 steps once again separate them. Ben searches frantically for a way to regain his footing, to overcome the gap that always seems to hang between them. His brain completely fails him. Kate's shoulders sag. She presses her face into her hands.
I shouldn't have come up here. I might be drunk, but I'm not that drunk. Whatever this weirdness is between us, it's a mistake.
I like the weirdness. Fuck. Could anything more asinine have come out of his mouth? I like you, Kate.
I like you too, Ben. I don't know why, but I do.
She shakes her head.
But we're not stupid teenagers. We're both adults. We're both smart enough to know this won't go anywhere. We're too different to ever be a real couple.
Then she's gone. The rooftop is empty, deserted. He wishes he could rewind it all and try again. Ben stares at the space where she stood. The emptiness sucks him in. Before he realizes what's happening, he's standing in the courtyard of College Creek, surrounded by the helpless kids gunned down by Johnson and his lackeys. The scene swirls, spitting him out in the baking heat of Pakistan, where he kneels beside the cot of a dying comrade. And finally, he finds himself at the bedside of his newborn son, Sam, signing over full custody to the woman he'd had a fling with for a few weeks while on leave. The remembered pain of that day staggers him. More than anything, he'd wanted to be a part of his little boy's life. And he had been, in a way, for a few weeks every year whenever he was on leave. But Sam's stepfather had been much more of a father than Ben had ever been. It had all been for the best. Ben wasn't cut out to be a husband any more than he was cut out to be a father. He reels, heart pounding as he yanks himself free of the flashbacks. Leaning over his knees, he takes in big gulps of air. Tonight was all for the best, he tells himself. He'd have messed things up with Kate sooner or later. Better sooner, and just get it over with. He doesn't regret the gift for her. Not for a second. He wanted to do it for her. And it feels good to know his feelings for her aren't one-sided. That's tonight's consolation prize. His takeaway from the disaster. He tries to be okay with it. He tries really, really hard.
"42. Missed call. Ben.
Ben paces on the rooftop, scanning the university campus with his binoculars. It's been exactly 1 week since he fucked things up with Kate. His insomnia is at an all-time high. He and Kate coexist like they always have. They seem to have mutually agreed to pretend the kiss never happened. Except Ben can't pretend it didn't happen. It's all he can think about. He wants to ask for a do-over, but hasn't the first clue how to go about doing that.
What are you looking for?
Johnny asks. It's his turn on watch, meaning he has to stick around even if Ben is feeling paranoid and decided to join him. I don't know, Ben replies. He's been fighting the itch for days. It has nothing to do with Kate. It's not the normal kind of itching from a mosquito bite either. It's a buzzing in his gut, a sense that something in the world isn't right. A lifetime in the army has honed his instincts. He's had enough bad luck to recognize when it's looming around the corner. What pisses him off is that even when he knows shit is about to go down, it often doesn't do him a damn bit of good.
What do you mean you don't know?
Johnny asks. He has his notebook open on his lap. How the kid can watch anything while he scribbles away in that thing is beyond Ben. I have a feeling. Ben pauses, watching a group of 8 zombies stumble their way through campus. He makes a mental note to tell Kate. The team should go out to dispatch them later today.
Like a bad feeling?
Johnny asks.
Like a sixth sense?
Ben lowers the binos with an exasperated grumble. Exactly. He resents the kid for his eloquence. Johnny scribbles something in his notebook.
Tell me what it feels like.
No. Ben returns the binos to his face, sweeping the fortifications around Creekside.
Come on,
Johnny wheedles.
This is for posterity. You know I'm recording our life here at Creekside. Tell me what premonition feels like.
Ben rounds on him. It feels like shit is going to hit the fan, and I don't know how to stop it. He glares. It sucks balls, kid. Johnny grins at him.
I'm going to quote you on that.
Letting out another huff of disgust, Ben tosses aside the binoculars and heads down the ladder. He knows better than to open his mouth around that kid.
Bring up some dinner for me,
Johnny calls after him.
I hate cold food.
Ben ignores him, even as he makes a mental note to get food for Johnny. He stomps into the common room. It's bustling with 18 bodies, 2 of which happen to be kids who decided this crowded room was a great place to play tag. Ben stands in the doorway, mouth twisting with distaste. It's time to knock down some walls and make this dorm suite a genuine gathering space. It's getting too damned cramped for his taste these days. He'll talk to Kate and see about putting together a team to execute the remodel. It will be a good excuse to talk to her. He finds Kate sitting at the kitchen table, chewing at her bottom lip as she fiddles with the receiver of the ham. At the look on her face, Ben feels his hackles rise. Things might have regressed to a strictly professional level with them, but hell if he's going to stand by and say nothing if she looks worried about something. Besides, the anxiety in his gut is expanding, making him even more edgy. What's going on? He barks, coming to stand beside the table. A few people glance up at his sharp tone. Ben realizes he's switched into his military voice. "I didn't mean to talk like a drill sergeant," he says, attempting with moderate success to modify his tone. Kate looks up with a wrinkled brow.
"It's Alvarez. He missed our regular check-in 3 days ago. He was supposed to check in this morning."
Her voice trails off.
"I'm just worried. That's 2 missed check-ins."
"It's not the first time he's missed a call,"
Carter points out, pulling out a chair to sit beside his mother.
"Stuff happens. I'm sure he'll be in touch as soon as he can."
Kate continues to worry at her bottom lip.
"I just have a bad feeling, you know?"
"That makes 2 of us," Ben mutters, turning away. His voice is lost in the general hum around them as Gary comes in off the balcony with a fresh pot of spaghetti, the sauce made from the first harvest of Lila's tomatoes in the garden. That night, sleep is impossible. His room feels cramped and stuffy. Between the itchy foreboding gnawing at him from the inside and endless thoughts of Kate, his head might explode. He goes to the common room to get some water. Not that water would help him sleep, but he could use the distraction. He's just grabbed a cup when the ham radio crackles with sound.
"Mama Bear, this is Foot Soldier. Fort Ross to Humboldt. Is anyone there? Over?"
Ben jerks, knocking the ham receiver to the floor in his haste. Fumbling it into his hand, he answers. "Fort Ross, this is Humboldt. Where the hell have you guys been? You have Mama Bear worried sick. Over." A beat of silence.
"Who is this?"
Ben racks his brain for a call sign. He's never spoken to Alvarez on the ham before. He says the first name that comes to mind. "This is Wordsmith. I live with Mama Bear and Wandering Rider." Wordsmith. Where the fuck did that name come from? He's the last person who should be using that call sign. "We've been waiting for your call," he says.
"Good to hear your voice, Wordsmith. Shit has gone sideways at Fort Ross. We're under siege."
"What's the sit rep?" Kate mentioned Alvarez had a military background.
"Wordsmith, are you military? Over?"
"That's affirmative. 30 years of service. Over."
"Thank fucking God. Maybe you can help us. Can you get Mama Bear? I don't want to tell this story twice. Over."
"Affirmative. Back in 3. Over."
"43. Siege. Ben."
As he rushes away to get Kate, his premonition kicks into high gear. This is the shoe drop he's been expecting. Whatever Alvarez is about to tell them, it's not going to be good. A short time later, the entire Creekside crew, minus the children, is gathered around the ham radio. It had taken only minutes to wake everyone. "Foot Soldier, this is Wordsmith. Over." Several heads swivel in his direction, Kate's the first among them. Ben feels his face heat and keeps his eyes locked on the ham. Why the fuck had that handle popped into his head?
"Wordsmith, this is Foot Soldier. Everyone there?"
Kate takes the receiver from Ben.
"Foot Soldier, this is Mama Bear. We're all here. What's your status? Over?"
"Not good, Mama Bear. We're fucked. Over."
That is not a detailed report of the situation.
Kate grinds out.
Details, foot soldier. Right now. Over.
Remember those bandits I told you about? The ones who kidnapped our people?
Yes.
They're back. Only there's more of them. It started with raids on the perimeter of our land. The livestock, the horses, the orchard, the fish we left out to dry. Then a few of our people disappeared. Ben feels his temper start to boil. He grips the edge of the table, fighting against the flashback that tries to force itself to the forefront.
We formed search parties. More of our people disappeared,
Alvarez says.
Then over 24 people on bicycles were spotted north of Fort Ross on Highway 1. They were heavily armed and heading straight for us. We secured the fort just before the bandits arrived.
Kate's knuckles are white around the receiver.
What's your situation now? She asks.
Mr. Rosario, the bandit leader, wants Fort Ross. At the mention of the name Mr. Rosario, Kate's entire body stills. Ben's hackles go up at the sudden rage that paints her face. He doesn't know who this Mr. Rosario is, but Kate's reaction is enough to make him want to start shooting something.
It gets worse,
Alvarez says.
Rosario has 7 of my people. She's given us 24 hours to surrender. After that, she'll execute one of them every day she has to wait.
Seconds tick by. Kate visibly wrestles with her anger, jaw clenched so hard Ben can hear her teeth grind.
24 hours?
Kate barks.
When did the clock start ticking?
27 minutes ago. Kate leans over the table, her face a set mask of determination.
I'm coming, foot soldier. Hold on. I'll be there. Over and out.
She slams the receiver down on the table, glaring at everyone and nothing.
Will someone please tell me why that crazy bitch is named Mr. Rosario?
She shouts, lifting her eyes to the ceiling as though the answer might drop from the sky. The room stills, everyone frozen by this uncharacteristic display of anger. Reed tentatively raises a hand in the air.
Mama? What?
Kate snaps. I know the story of Mr. Rosario.
Tell me.
She attempts to rein in her fury and completely fails. Mr. Rosario was the original drug lord of Northern California. When his wife caught him cheating, she cut off his balls and locked him in a shed in the woods and left him there until he starved to death. His wife took on his name and took over his business. The story is that she set up a compound around the shed where he died. She runs all her operations from there. Hands on her hips, Kate glares. Not at Reed, but past him, like she's seen a memory she'd rather forget. Ben can relate to that. Then she stalks out of the room, leaving everyone sitting there in stunned silence. Ben is the first one to move. Kate isn't going anywhere without him. He charges out the door after her, Carter and Jenna right on his heels. Kate is inside her room, shoving supplies into a running pack.
Mom?
Carter pokes his head around the door frame. Ben and Jenna hang back behind him.
You can't do this. My friend is in trouble,
she replies, not looking up.
I'm going to help him. Did you hear the part about Fort Ross being surrounded and outgunned by a band of raiders?
Carter says.
You can't go.
Kate spins on him.
You know what that bitch did to me and Frederico. She captured us. She chained a collar of bells around our neck and pushed us out into a forest infested with zombies. We almost died trying to get away. She did it for her own entertainment.
Ben sees red. The mental image of Kate with a collar of bells around her neck makes him want to strangle something. I'm going with you, he says. Kate flicks a glance at him, nods, then goes back to shoving supplies into her pack.
This will be a volunteer mission only.
Fort Ross is 200 miles away,
Jenna says.
It's not safe to drive.
You saw what happened when Leo and his people tried to drive.
You're a badass, Mom, but even you can't run that far in 24 hours. Kate straightens, flinging her pack over her shoulders and snapping it into place.
I'm not going to run. I'm taking the boat.
She marches past them and into the bathroom, filling her pack bladder with boiled water kept in jugs on the floor.
What boat?
Carter demands.
Susan's boat.
You don't know how to drive a boat,
Jenna argues.
I'll have Susan show me.
Carter turns to Ben. Will you talk some sense into her? We just need to take enough firepower to blow those fuckers to the moon and back, Ben says. That will take care of them. We can figure out the boat. Kate spins toward him, jabbing a finger into his chest.
That's what I'm talking about. You're in charge of pulling together everything you think we'll need. I'll get the Alphazom recordings.
Her mouth sets.
I'll sick an entire horde of zombies on that bitch if I have to.
Mom! Carter shouts. This is a suicide mission! Kate blinks, briefly coming down from her state of focused rage. She grabs Carter in a fierce hug.
I can't lose Alvarez, baby,
she says.
I just can't. I already lost Lila and Jesus. I can't lose anyone else.
Those were accidents,
Jenna says.
We all miss them, but it's no one's fault they're gone. Don't throw yourself away trying to fix something that can't be fixed.
We can do this. Ben steps forward. A small guerrilla team. Me, Caleb, Ash, Reed for his speed, and Eric for his sniper skills. We boat down the coast. It won't take more than 7 or 8 hours. Those assholes will never know what hit them. Like you said, we'll take the Alpha recording. If we can't outgun them, we'll turn the zombs on them. Face contorted, Carter glares at Ben. Just because you're in love with my mom doesn't mean you have the right to encourage her suicide mission. The room goes silent. Kate's face turns red. Ben considers crawling under a table. He stomps out of the room instead. I'll go get the guns. He slams the door behind him. Maybe sometime in the next 24 hours, he'll regain some of his self-respect.
"44. Apocalyptic Bounce House. Kate.
There's only one problem with your plan,
says Susan after I lay out the bullet points to the assembled group.
My boat is almost out of fuel. It's the reason Gary was in the water when he was attacked by the shark. He was siphoning gas.
I pace, chewing at my bottom lip as I sort through options. Can boats use regular gas?
There are enough abandoned cars around.
Susan shakes her head.
No, they use MDO, marine diesel oil. The closest marina is in Eureka. But there are too many zombs there. Our best option is to try the communities on the west side of the bay. Lots of homes there have docks and boats. We can siphon from them. I think we have enough gas to make it across the bay.
Then that's what we do. I nod, mind racing. This is a volunteer-only mission. You all know the risks. No one is obligated to help.
You're not taking my boat unless I drive it,
Susan says.
Besides, you saved Gary's life. This is the least I can do to repay the favor.
I'm going.
Leo folds his arms over his chest.
Rosario raided our lab and stole some of the proprietary hybrids we'd developed, butchered them and sold them on the illegal market. I've been wanting to get back at that bitch for years.
Great. I nod to Susan and Leo, grateful for the help. We need to be packed and ready to leave by sunrise. That's a little less than 2 hours. Are there any other volunteers? To my surprise, nearly everyone volunteers. Even Carter and Jenna, despite the fact they think this is a kamikaze mission. I choose the 4 people Ben named to round out the team. Caleb, Ash, Reed, and Eric. Carter is pissed I'm leaving. My son doesn't get mad very often, but when he's mad, he stays mad. For a long time. I can only hope to earn his forgiveness. You and Jenna are in charge while I'm gone, I tell them. Keep up the workouts. Focus the rest of your days on scavenging and installation of new solar panels for the indoor gardens. Carter is so furious, he can't make eye contact with me. Jenna gives me a hug.
Be safe, Kate.
I'll be back before you know it. I kiss Carter on the cheek, pretending he isn't giving me the cold shoulder. If I die on this mission, he'll remember that I love him. I find Ben in the armory, organizing firearms. I feel awkward after the thing Carter said. I decide to use the same tactic I've been using ever since our awkward kiss. When I enter the armory, I pretend like nothing happened. Think we have what we need to take down Rosario? I ask. Ben doesn't look up.
Long-range weapons and explosives, he says. Those will be our best line of defense to take these fuckers down. We also have a handful of compact travel rifles that fold in half and fit into a pack.
I take in the 2 large backpacks filled with weapons and explosives. Ben, you don't have to come. This is my fight. He gives me a flat what-the-fuck look.
This woman chained bells to your neck and set zombies after you, Kate. She deserves to be strung up by her entrails. That's exactly what I'm going to do if I get my hands on her first.
He goes back to sorting weapons. Everyone you named agreed to come with us. He snorts.
Of course they did. There isn't a person in this place who wouldn't follow you into hell, Mama Bear.
Susan and Leo are coming too. Susan to pilot the boat. Leo to get revenge on Rosario.
Good. We can use their help. Don't forget the Alpha recordings. Wish those kids had time to get more than that single command.
Ben slaps some extra magazines into a backpack.
Do you mind grabbing my bug-out pack and running shoes from my room? I'll meet you downstairs with the rest of the ammo.
Sure, Ben, I say, grateful to have his help on this mission. See you downstairs.
Shit. This sucks.
Susan runs a hand over her face, pursing her lips as she stares at her boat. We stand ankle-deep in the swampy waters of Humboldt Bay. Fairhaven, the charter ship, has been left to its own devices for weeks. It's become wedged in the soil and lists to one side.
She's going to be a bitch to get out of that mud.
Susan continues.
It's going to take some time.
Alvarez doesn't have time. Lives are depending on us. We've wasted enough time just getting here. Crossing the highway hadn't been any easier this time. We had the trick of setting off car alarms to draw the zombies away, but Eric still managed to get himself grabbed by a zombie with broken legs that was stuck under a car. Only Reed's quick reflexes had saved him.
"Let's not stand around with our thumbs up our asses,"
Ben growls, sloshing through the water to the boat.
"Let's get our gear loaded and get this girl out to sea."
We have 2 large backpacks crammed with munitions. To me, it looks like enough to resupply a small army. For the first time, I'm glad I know how to fire a gun. I won't hesitate to shoot Rosario if I have the chance. Caleb and Eric climb into the boat while the rest of us pass gear up to them.
"See if you can find a tarp or something to put over the weapons in case it rains,"
Ben says.
"Aye, aye, Captain,"
Caleb says with a mock salute. The look Ben gives Caleb has enough rancor to level a city block. The tension between the 2 men is electric.
"I haven't figured out why those 2 don't like one another,"
Leo whispers. Neither of them talk about it, I whisper back. Once we get our gear loaded, I turn to Susan. Now what?
The good news is that the tide is in. A captain is never without her tide chart.
Susan taps her jacket pocket.
I checked before we headed out. Good thing I have one that goes through the end of the year.
"What's the bad news?"
Ben asks.
Hold up,
Susan replies.
There's more good news. The bow of the boat isn't stuck in the mud, only the stern.
"But that's where the propeller is,"
Caleb says with a frown.
"We sort of need the propeller."
Are you ready for the last piece of good news?
Susan says.
"You have a secret M&M stash downstairs?"
Reed asks.
Not quite, but it's almost as good as that. There are 7 of us, which means we have at least 1,000 pounds between us.
"That's good news,"
Leo asks.
"Won't we just grind the boat farther into the mud?"
Not if we're all standing in the bow. Come on.
Susan leads the way, herding us all toward the front of the boat.
The theory is simple. We stand on the bow together and jump up and down until we get the stern out of the mud.
We all stare at her.
"Like an apocalyptic bounce house?"
Reed asks. Susan grins.
Exactly.
Under Susan's direction, we pile around the bow, all of us standing on the lip and gripping the railing. If Susan wasn't adamant that this was a tried-and-true method of freeing a boat that had run aground, I'd think she was delusional.
We need to synchronize our jumps,
Susan says.
Everyone, squat down.
We obey, dropping onto the balls of our feet and using the railing for balance.
On the count of 3, everyone needs to push up in a jumping motion. Make sure you don't let go of the railing or you could end up in the mud. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We shove. To my amazement, the entire back end of the boat shifts upward. Not a lot, but enough for my skepticism to morph into hope.
Let's do it again,
Susan says.
1, 2, 3.
For a second time, we crouch down and jump. The stern of the boat shifts again.
We need to get a rhythm going,
Susan says.
No more long pauses between each jump. Ready? On my count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
We push in time to her count, rocking the boat up and down. With each jump, the back of the boat lifts a few inches higher.
"Who needs a tow truck
when you have an apocalyptic bounce house? Reed asks with a laugh. This is kinda fun.
Focus, Susan tells him. We're almost there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The back end of the boat abruptly lifts free. At the same time, the front of the boat tips forward at a dangerous angle. Ash slides off the bow and lands in the muddy water below. Shit, she snarls, getting to her feet and shaking off the muck. I didn't bring a change of pants. None of us had room for much in our running packs. The whole point of them is to pack light so we can move fast if necessary.
On the bright side,
Susan calls down to her,
we got the propeller out.
It's not your ass that's muddy and wet, Ash replies. The Fairhaven bobs in the shallow water, rocking in the gentle current. Ash climbs onto the deck and Susan hands her a dry shirt.
It's the best I can do,
she gives an apologetic shrug.
I used all the towels on Gary's leg.
We have to tell Johnny about this,
Eric says.
This needs to go in his book. Which one?
Caleb asks.
That guy has a lot of different notebooks. How to thrive in the apocalypse for sure, Reed replies. Everyone needs to know about the apocalyptic bounce house method. It's brilliant.
It's standard protocol for a grounded boat, Susan replies.
That doesn't make it any less brilliant.
I look down at my watch, which I set to 0 just after my conversation with Alvarez. It's already been 5 hours since we spoke to him. The first prisoner of Mr. Rosario will be executed in 19 hours, unless we stop her.
Everyone grab a seat,
Susan says.
Time to sail out of shallow waters and find some gas.
"45. Out of gas. Ben.
The Fairhaven trundles along. It's not a fast boat by any stretch of the imagination, but after traveling exclusively on foot for over 6 months, it feels like they're moving at warp speed.
There.
Susan raises a hand and points.
Manila. That's where we'll look for gas.
That wouldn't happen to be the marina where Gary got attacked, would it? Eric asks. Susan's cheerful expression evaporates.
No. The shark attack was several miles south. Sharks don't usually come this far up in the bay. I'm hoping the waters will be clear of zombies and sharks.
Ben squints. The microscopic town is a brownish smudge on the horizon. It doesn't look promising in his opinion, but he keeps his mouth shut. They're fucked if there's no fuel. They're double fucked if there are zombies and sharks in the water. As though on cue, the Fairhaven sputters and lurches in the water.
Damn it!
Susan pushes the throttle.
Come on, baby,
she murmurs, urging her boat forward.
Get Mama to the shore.
Ben lets out a breath as the boat motors on, once again pushing through the water. What happened? Leo asks from where he stands at the bow.
I told you we were low on fuel,
Susan replies.
I think it is now safe to say we are dangerously low.
What's the difference between low and dangerously low? Reed asks. Ben snorts. It's impossible for him to hold back his words. It's the difference between driving to Manila and swimming to Manila. Kate frowns at him. Fuck it. He gives her a non-apologetic shrug. He's an asshole. Everyone knows it.
Ben isn't wrong.
Susan watches the growing smudge of Manila. She rubs a loving hand across the dash of the boat.
Come on, baby. Mama doesn't want to go for a swim today.
Ash mutters something crass in Spanish. I second whatever you just said, Ben tells her. It sounded cranky.
I didn't bring a swimsuit, she replies.
This brings a few chuckles. Ben just feels grim. He's pretty sure no one packed a swimming suit. That means, if someone goes into the water, they're either going in fully clothed or in their underwear. The Fairhaven gives another lurch, stalling in the bay. Ben watches Kate and measures the mounting anxiety on her face. She starts looking this way when she's contemplating something particularly nuts. It's her concern for Alvarez. He understands it, even if Alvarez isn't a personal friend. The Fairhaven coughs and spits in protest, then keeps going. Ben lets out a breath. He focuses on the approaching landmass, willing it to come closer, closer. The charter boat gives one last sputter, then another, then the engine clicks off. Silence fills the air, so loud his eardrums feel the pressure. In the distance comes the cry of seagulls.
Damn!
Susan's voice is the only sound beside that of the gulls. Kate's face is pinched, her jaw set as she gazes at the shoreline of Manila. The hamlet is a solid quarter-mile away. Ben already knows what she's thinking. He heads her off at the pass. No way is he going to let her risk her life. I'll go. He stands, unbuttoning the shirt of his fatigues. Caleb turns sharp eyes on him.
Me too. I completed a few triathlons. I'm a good open-water swimmer.
Of course he is. Fucking golden boy, Ben mutters.
You guys sure about this?
Leo says as he comes around from the bow.
It's not safe,
Kate says. Tell me you weren't planning to jump into the water 30 seconds ago, Ben says to her. She doesn't respond. He snorts and tosses his shirt aside, next going for his shoes.
We'll find some gas, Caleb says. Then we'll find a boat or a kayak or something and come back.
I'll go too,
Ash says, rising.
Safety in numbers. No.
Kate stops her.
I don't want our group fractioned any more than it already is.
Her attention turns to Ben and Caleb.
You get gas and get back here as fast as you can, in one piece. Understand?
Caleb gives her a somber salute as he hands his shirt to Ash.
Yes, ma'am.
There is no mock or teasing on his face this time. Susan studies the coastline through the binoculars.
The waters look clear,
she reports.
Zombies sink when they fall into the water. Be careful as you get closer to shore.
No shark fins? Caleb asks.
No shark fins.
Eric, rooftop, Ben says. Get the rifle ready. You see a shark fin, you shoot.
Got it.
Eric grabs a rifle, scrambling onto the rooftop of the Fairhaven. Ben removes his belt from the loops of his pants and refastens it above his waist, double-checking the strap on his knife to make sure the blade won't slip free in the water. Then he hands both of his guns to Reed. Hold on to these until I get back. Be careful out there. Reed takes his gun. Then he removes his knife and zombat from his belt. Take these. Mama Bear always tells us to have a plan B and plan C whenever possible. Thanks, kid. Ash also exchanges her spare weapons for Caleb's firearms. I'm taking notes, Eric says, even though he doesn't have a pen or a notebook in hand. You both better come back. Johnny will expect precise details for his book.
I meant it when I said you better come back in one piece.
Kate puts her hands on her hips as she faces Ben. Only way I could possibly come back, Ben replies. All the drama is making him edgy, not giving himself time to think too hard on what needs to happen next. He sheds his pants. Ben's never paid too much attention to his body. It's always served him well enough and gotten the job done. And hell, he's pushing 50. Though he's lean and fit, his muscles aren't what they once were. He's scarred and tattooed and has an uneven tan. One thing he's never paid mind to is his underwear. He always bought whatever was cheapest at Walmart, or whatever the military gave him if he was overseas. His tighty-whities aren't exactly white anymore. There may even be a few holes in them. He feels like a dumpy old man next to Caleb. The young man is nothing but miles of smooth, dark skin and hard muscle. He wears dark red boxer briefs, which make him look like an Olympic swimmer. Fucker. Dude! Eric blinks at Ben from behind his glasses. Those are some badass tattoo sleeves.
Is that a fairy on your arm?
Susan asks. Ben doesn't stick around any longer. Checking his belt and weapons one more time, he dives off the boat and into the frigid waters of Humboldt Bay.